right, let's call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order on September 5th, 2018. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Kelly is here. Alderman Laws.
Oh, present.
Alderman Clee.
Here.
Alderman Karen.
Here.
Alderman Harry Gathright. And Chairman Jim Donches.
I am here. Public comments. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak to the committee on any subject? And I don't see anyone. Next, communications. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding 2019 Ford Police Interceptor sedan front-wheel drive vehicle with a value of $26,706. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from MHQ Municipal Vehicles in the amount of $26,706. Funds are available in Department 150, Nashua Police Department, SURF.
And we do have Karen and company from the PD here if anybody has any questions. We do have a number of police issues, so maybe come on up just in case there are questions. And because not everyone maybe has met you, why don't you each introduce yourselves to the committee?
Good evening. I'm Karen Smith, Business Manager for the Police Department.
Brian Soika, Fleet Supervisor.
Okay. So we have the 2019 Ford Police Interceptor. Any discussion or questions about that? Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If one of you good folks could answer, I have just a question that is before us, but there's other vehicles that will come up later in this evening too. But looking at the mileage, it is a 2007. It's a 95,000 miles in it, which I agree needs to be replaced. That is about the life expectancy of particularly a frontline vehicle such as used like that. But could you just touch base? What is the department policy of when these vehicles should be cycled through and to seek for replacement that they come up?
We actually look to try to replace them when they get up to around 100,000 miles, I should say. Usually 10 years is the magic number before we start seeing a lot of rust issues and stuff like that. But if it's still in good shape at 10 years, we'll definitely keep it. So we try to keep it to the 100,000 mark. Try to keep it a little bit under that or at that point before we start seeing a lot more repairs to these cars.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding 2019 Ford Police Interceptor utility all-wheel drive vehicle marked K9 with a value of $35,659. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from MHQ Municipal Vehicles in the amount of $35,659. Source of funding is Department 150, Nashua Police Department, SURF.
Discussion? Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, so this one is a 2014, and it has 84,000, but it's the 84 is getting close to the 100,000 mile on this particular vehicle.
Yes, and realistically, we probably wouldn't see the vehicles till beginning of next year sometime in
Good
that
point,
time.
yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else?
I saw that there was a pretty good trade-in, though, for that particular vehicle. I think it was $4,300 compared to the other ones.
Because
Where your trade-ins
because
were
of
a
what
lot
it is,
less.
yes. It's a very popular vehicle.
Yeah.
And they can resell them fairly easier than the Crown Vics that we actually are trying to trade into.
Great.
And with the police package.
Yeah, great.
Right.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding 2019 Ford Police Interceptor utility all-wheel drive vehicle marked K9 with a value of $45,603. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from MHQ Municipal Vehicles in the amount of $45,603. Funds are available in Department 150, Nashua Police Department, SURF.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding two 2019 Ford Police Interceptor utility all-wheel drive vehicles marked with a value of $79,997. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from MHQ Municipal Vehicles in the amount of $79,997. Source of funding is Department 150, Nashua Police Department, SURF.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding purchase of one new Special Hazards Rescue vehicle with a value of $650,000. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from Pierce Manufacturing in the amount of $650,000. Funds are available in Department 152 Fire Grant Funds.
And Chief Rhodes is here. We just reached your item, Chief. But since it's a big item and since we have a grant, maybe you should come up and just briefly explain the good work you did in saving the city a lot of money.
Good evening. Thank you, Brian Rhodes, Fire Chief. So this request this evening is, as you know, the board has previously approved a federal assistance to firefighters grant in the amount of $650,000 for a multi-purpose vehicle that will replace 3 vehicles that we will remove from future SURF liability to the city. Historically, when the city has purchased fire apparatus, we prepay. And by prepaying, we achieve a savings from the interest that accrues on the vehicle. And in this particular case, we'll be saving $28,500 if we prepay the vehicle versus waiting until the end upon delivery. So in conversation with the CFO's office, they are in full agreement of this plan. And we're looking to, save that $28,500 and put that into the actual vehicle instead of just paying it to the manufacturer.
All right, that sounds good. Any questions, comments?
I think I read, oh, sorry.
Yes,
I read
Alderwoman
somewhere where they-
Harriet Gathright.
You're getting matching funds or something? Was it in this one?
With the federal AFG grant, they say it's a 10% match, but it isn't a 10% match. I think it comes out to, so it's 650. My math, and I think your math would think it would be 65,000, but it actually isn't. It's 59,000 and change, the way the government computes it.
So we are getting a $650,000 vehicle, in essence, for $59,000.
Well, the reality of it is we're getting closer to a $700,000 vehicle for the $650,000 for the $59,000 investment the city
Of
puts in.
local money.
Of local money, correct. And we anticipate a minimum of 15 years before replacement, so.
Any questions, discussion? Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, as a former employee, I don't want to get too much, but I compliment you and your staff for looking at an item such as this and combining different vehicles to get into one vehicle, which is fiscally prudent to the taxpayer and will definitely assist this department. And to explain that further, could you say what this vehicle is going to do? Because you mentioned technical equipment, which I have an understanding on, but could you explain to the people at home what this vehicle will be capable of doing and how much of an asset it will be to this community?
Absolutely, and thank you for your kind words, Alderman. So currently, we provide hazardous materials response to 19 communities that are in the Sauhegan Valley. And all of those neighboring communities pay basically a stipend for all the things it takes to run a hazardous materials team, equipment and physicals and training, and there's a lot that goes into it. So that's a huge bonus to us as a community. So right now, we have 2 vehicles that are assigned to the hazardous materials response. And we have 1 vehicle that is actually, well, 2 of the vehicles are repurposed. One of the vehicles is an old, I believe it was a Bellavance, old-style Hackney body beer delivery truck that we're still using. And the second vehicle was a commercial cab and chassis that started out life as one of the water supply vehicles we had back in the day, and was turned into an air supply unit by in-house by the mechanical division. And what that gives us is for fires, which even today more so than before, when Alderman O'Brien was there, we really, with the onset of the cancer issue that is popping up in firefighters and all that, we're really pushing self-contained breathing apparatus, so we're using air quicker. So that vehicle comes at fires at second alarm or greater. The problem we have now, as you can imagine, so that takes three people, 3 employees to bring these 3 trucks to an incident. Our plan is to incorporate that all into 1 vehicle. So we become a more efficient organization, but we can also get that equipment there much quicker. And again, the equipment that we're replacing is getting rather long in the tooth, so to speak. And like any new vehicle, we will get the warranty that comes with it. So we should have, a few years here of very limited mechanical expenditures for it.
Very good. Anyone else? Alderwoman Clee.
Hi, thank you. Chief Rhodes, one of the documents that I was looking at, the proposal, the bid 427 on here, I was a little confused when I was looking at it. I even wrote myself a note. When I must be misinterpreting it, but it talks about that the item is 691,541, and then it says a minus 13,000 for a trade-in allowance for the 1999, and it comes up with 650. My math is different. I don't come up with 650 at the bottom line. Is that
Because
also including that 59,000 you were talking about?
That is the bottom line purchase price of the vehicle,
Right.
$650,000. That price, they do not reflect it in there because we're not there yet
Okay.
of the prepay option.
Okay.
That's where that money doesn't show up. It shows, yes, we're trading in 2 vehicles to them, and we're going to repurpose the 3rd vehicle.
Okay. So the 650 is what we're paying for if we do the prepay, and the 691 would be less, the 13,000 would be if we didn't do prepay. Is that correct?
At the end of the day,
Yes.
we're paying $650,000.
The prepay,
for a
okay.
vehicle that's worth close to
The 691,
700,
700,000.
691 and
Okay.
change, yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
Alderwoman Karen.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is great work that your staff has done to be able to get this kind of a grant of $650,000. I think this is really good for the city, and it just shows that we're looking every place we can to get money from any place we can. So kudos to you and your staff, Chief.
I'll pass that on, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, thank you, Chief, for saving us this money and improving the departments. And thank you for coming tonight. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding FY16 State Homeland Security Grant Program Inflatable Command Post Shelter with a value of $49,155. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from Zumro Air Shelters USA LLC in the amount of $49,155. Source of funding is Department 156 Emergency Management Homeland Security Grant.
And we have Justin Cates, Emergency Management Director, if you haven't met him. Maybe, Justin, go ahead and explain the idea.
Yeah, so this is a funded project through the Department of Homeland Security. We received this grant a few years ago and have been having some challenges with the state who the funding passes through on the specific model that we were authorized to purchase. But what we were able to agree upon was the model that's before you this evening. It's an inflatable air shelter that can be set up standalone from any of our vehicles or any of our buildings. This can be used as a command post for a longer-term incident, whether it be requested by the fire department, the police department, EMS, or any other organization. It can also be used as a location to set up a medical treatment area for a special event or any sort of location that doesn't have some sort of a physical space for us to utilize. So we can use that for medical treatment, triage, or as an area to keep people warm or cool during extreme heat or extreme cold. So this is no match required, and we hope to start this process off of the purchase as soon as possible to get this thing in service this year.
Okay, discussion? Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, Mr. Case, in going over the specs, I didn't really see the size. Maybe I didn't pore over it, but what is the capacity and the size that we're talking about?
So I would say the closest thing that you could probably compare it to would be from the one that we're going to be purchasing. It's probably from this column over to the wall, probably no more than 10 feet tall. It's an inflatable system, so what it'll end up doing is it comes with a pump, so it can be plugged into the wall, and you can inflate it that way, or you can use SCBA bottles and attach those and use it to inflate. The time that it takes to set that area up is no more than 5-6 minutes.
Right. And follow up, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, of course.
Would you not agree that, when I had 15 years as a deputy chief, we could immediately set up a command center in the early stages. But when you get to a protracted incident, that's going to take days, such as the flooding we had in one of our neighborhoods several years ago, and we were there for several days after. You need a facility such as this to have a long-term command post and something available, and that can easily be broken down and reused again. Am I correct in assuming all of that?
Yep, absolutely.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Cates. Now we have, or Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding a contract for hotel market study with a value of $15,000. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Pinnacle Advisory Group in the amount of $15,000. Funds are available in Department 183, Economic Development Escrow Funds.
And why doesn't Mr. Cummings come on up? And this is, of course, Tim Cummings, the Economic Development Director. Would you please explain the objective here?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the committee. I'm here this evening requesting $15,000, which is money out of an escrowed account for real estate consulting services. And the reason why is we have been interested in developing in the downtown area some differing uses. We traditionally see mixed-use housing development in the downtown. And we have been recently speaking to a few developers about the concept of a hotel in the downtown. We received feedback that if we had some due diligence on our end to help provide some data, we could have a more sophisticated and hopefully positive conversation. This is a consultant that specializes in doing market studies for hotels, very well respected, and is going to look at the downtown area and help us understand what we can do to better position ourselves for that type of development in the downtown area.
So I would add only that we approved an RFP some years ago to possibly develop the School Street parking lot, and a hotel is a possibility for
Yes.
that. And right now, we've had one hotel developer a little bit interested, but the feedback we've gotten from people in the business is that if we had a marketing study that showed that this is a feasible project for this market, particularly with this consultant who is the #1 consultant in the hotel industry, that, we would greatly enhance our chances of persuading someone that this would make sense in Nashua's downtown. Hasn't been a hotel built in downtown since, at least it's still standing, since the Leighton House.
Don't
Since-
forget the old tavern.
Yeah, the old tavern, but sometime in the mid-19th century. So it's been a couple hundred years, and maybe it's time to get another hotel after all that time. That's the thought process. But are there any questions, comments? Alderman Laws.
Well, I just wanted to go on record as saying this is one of those things that really excites me. And I think that, and I've said it before, the fact that Nashua downtown is so successful in spite of the fact that it has a hotel is baffling to me. And I think this is a sound investment for the city, even if it turns out that it's not, a financially viable option, just to know, and then we can move on looking for other projects. So thanks for that.
Absolutely.
Alderwoman Harriet Gathright.
Is Park Street parking lot, that's the only place that you've looked at?
So that is one of the sites, the contract actually scopes out the idea of 3 differing sites all within the downtown area. The one site that is articulated is the School Street parking lot.
Okay.
But if someone were interested in another site, we would try to make that possible as well. But that's one that we had identified as a possibility, that is city-owned as opposed to privately owned. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. I just want to say I totally support this, particularly where it's a feasibility study and everything, because I look at it, in order to get a great downtown, if we're going to look at Nashua, it's got to be the postcard of Main Street, basically, and that's our selling point. And as we look at different things that are going to enhance our downtown, you just don't do it all at once. It's all an integral puzzle that you piece together, all the different pieces. And this is one of the pieces that will be pieced together, that in the future, I really do see that if we're custodials of our duty here as aldermen to enhance the city, to make it thrive, this is one of the pieces of the puzzle that needs to go in that will enhance the city and make the downtown a very much strong focal point for all our citizens and our guests as well. Thank you.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you. I also want to say that I support this. I think it would be a great move for downtown. I do have a question about what he'll be looking at from a feasibility standpoint. Is he looking at specifically, is that site feasible, or is it overall, can the city of Nashua support a hotel downtown?
So she
Sorry.
is going to study specifically the market itself and whether the market is feasible. And then in particular, look at, based on her experience and expertise in relationships with, and in particular, it's a certain type of hotel to be exact. It is what's called a limited select flagged hotel. What is that? That's brands like a Hilton, I'm sorry, a Marriott Courtyard, a Hilton product of like the Hilton Garden Inn or Embassy Suites. They're specific types of brands within either the Hilton, the Marriott, the Hyatt chain. And so that's a specific category or product. And then knowing that, what type of sites would actually be of interest to those types of brands. For instance, frontage on Main Street, or can it be off of Main Street? And how big does it need to be to accommodate the certain type of room count that is necessary? And so those will all be part of the market study that occurs.
Thank you.
Excuse me, anyone else? Alderman Laws.
I just have to ask, is parking going to be included in this? Did you say that?
Well, yes, in regards to, we know that parking has to be a component, but we would like to leverage the current parking structures, if possible, for the opportunity to maybe not necessarily need as much land directly for parking, because we can utilize our existing infrastructure.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding a contract for residential real estate brokerage and marketing services with a value of $0. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Broku Realty Group.
Mr. Cummings, you want to
Yeah.
tell them what this is all about?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So the contract that's before you, I just want to make sure it's clear. It is Baroku Realty Group, which is part of KW Realty Metropolitan, which is the broker that the contract actually would be signed with. And then there's the realtors that work under the brokerage umbrella of KW Realty Metropolitan. And why we're doing this is because we have a few surplus residential properties that have needed to be put back onto the tax rolls. They mainly came about from two different ways. First being the Broad Street Parkway, and as that project is now closing out, there was some takings that occurred early on that have created now this opportunity for some of those residential properties to actually go back out onto the private market. And then, if this board recalls, we, about a year ago, took back some property that were delinquent in their taxes, and so we are going to try to get some of these tax taking properties back on the tax rolls. We're looking to get a residential broker to market and put these opportunities back out onto the market, so we can hopefully get them back paying taxes. So that's what this contract does, and I would appreciate your favorable endorsement of it.
And one of these is West Hollis Street,
Correct.
which we took for taxes, and it was a total, well, needs a lot of work, so we're hoping to be able to sell it to a responsible party and, get the property upgraded. It's like 44, 42, I forget the number, West Hollis.
38 and a half.
38 and a half. Anyway, any discussions, questions? All those, if not, Alderwoman Karen.
Likes to avoid me. Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question as to why we're doing this when we've, over the past 8 years that I've been on the board, we've always had an auctioneer do this. I know we've sold property from the Broad Street Parkway that we had left over through that. And my second part of the question is, why are we going outside of the city when we have such great real estate agents to utilize? Two questions in one. Is that okay, Mayor?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the committee, first, I will answer the latter, which is we put this out for an RFP. We wanted anyone interested in the marketplace. I specifically reached out to 5 local realtors in Nashua, made them aware of this opportunity. I thought we would at least get one. Unfortunately, we only got one response, and that response happens to be someone works very well, very much in the Nashua area, but has hung their shingle with a shop out of Bedford, New Hampshire.
Okay, thank you.
So that's to answer that very specific question. And then relative to why going the direction of a brokerage as opposed to an auctioneer, we could go the auctioneer route. I think the sentiment was with some of the staff here in the city, in particular with the Broad Street Parkway, we have to make sure we obtain and achieve certain values to make sure we're meeting state and federal criteria, because sometimes certain monies were used, and we have to make sure we achieve fair market value. We thought we would have a better opportunity if we had someone out there actively marketing these properties to try to achieve the highest price possible. So that's
I
why.
think we're still, this goes back a ways, but correct me if I'm wrong, federal DOT, who has a lot of money in this project, doesn't like the auction approach. And if we sell these properties for less than the appraised value, they have to be convinced that we got as much as we could, and they are less likely to be convinced at an auction than they are through this approach. So part of this is to satisfy federal DOT so they don't penalize us and say that we didn't get enough for a property if it has to be sold for less than an appraisal. Yes, Alderwoman Karen.
Thank you. So are you saying that they weren't happy with the previous selling of some of that property on Broad Street? Or, I mean, I don't remember
What did we do
hearing
by,
anything.
we've done most of the federal DOT stuff by broker, haven't we? No?
I don't know. You're not
But
talking to me.
But they like this approach better, correct?
Okay. And the other thing is, would you ever would this be continued constantly, or would you do an auction, let's say, for the 38.5 West Hollis Street, which is a small, how much money are you gonna get fair market value for that? Because it's in such tough shape. It's just a question, because it's, we haven't had this before, so I think it's important to understand why we're shifting from one thing to another. And, I appreciate if you went to local real estate agents and nobody wanted to participate, well, that's on them. My concern is that we try to deal with our local businesses. But I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Now, with respect to 38, we don't we want to, because the property is in such a bad shape, what we really want, at least I would say what we really want, is someone who will come in and do a good job rehabbing it, right? And there are certain nonprofits in the area that might be much more responsible owners and rehabbers of a property such as that, rather than someone who's just going to bid the most and then milk it for whatever they can get out of it. So in that instance, that property, there are others involved, but that one, I think we want to make sure we sell to a buyer of our choice as opposed to necessarily the highest bidder, in order to reduce blight and slums in
I agree,
the
Mayor.
downtown.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Cummings.
So just to echo what the mayor was saying, the way you can do that and achieve that goal is through a PNS process, a purchase and sales agreement, where you can negotiate some of these terms and have them actually in a binding contract, as opposed to doing selling as is, whereas absolute auction type sale, where you're actually just then, once we dispose of it, we're then left to whatever actually occurs there. So this gives the municipality more of an opportunity in the direction of the potential future use of the site.
Now, this only authorizes the broker. This does not authorize the sale. So were we to arrive at a purchase price or whatever with any potential buyer, that would have to come back to the Board of Aldermen for approval. So all you're approving here is the idea of entering a contract with the broker. We still would have to approve the sale. Why do you say no?
Mr. Mayor, if I may just add that it is my understanding that the Board of Aldermen already acted on a few of the Broad Street Parkway properties in giving the ability for the city to sell them. So there
All
was already a resolution
Well, I'm
specifically.
more focused on 38
Oh, yep.
West Hollis Street. At least with respect to 38 West Hollis Street, we would have to come back and propose how we were going to go forward.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding the contract for Phase 2 of consulting regarding implementation of fundraising for the Performing Arts Center with a value of $48,000. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Full Circle Consulting in the amount of $48,000. Source of funding is Department 183 Economic Development, PAC project costs.
Yes, Mr. Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What's before you is the second phase of a two-phased proposal, and if this committee recalls, I was here earlier in the summer where we introduced Phase 1, which we are well underway, and the Planning and Economic Development Committee will be getting an update on this project at their end of September meeting. I will just say very quickly that the feasibility study, that Phase 1, should be wrapping up by mid-September. And so this would be, so we don't lose any time, the continuation and making sure that we have the consultant retained to then execute upon that feasibility study. It was always understood to be approximately a $75,000 type contract. And this is just the Phase 2 at $48,000. I assume I will be getting a question as to where this money is coming from. I want to make sure everyone understands this money is coming from the Downtown Improvement Committee's funding. They set this money aside, and that's the source of this funding. This project is obviously very near and dear to me, and will be critical for us to be able to move forward with the Performing Arts Center. Thank you.
Discussion, questions? Alderman Laws.
So do you have a progress report? So, what did I do?
No, yeah, I took it out of my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I sit on the Downtown Improvements Committee, so this is particularly, important to me.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may, there will be a progress report at the PEDC's September 18th meeting. I can tell you that the feasibility study is well underway. It has been very warmly received. That there have been many meetings with various stakeholders within the community throughout the summer, and the initial feedback that I've gotten is very positive. So we're well on our way. We're on track. I want to leave my comments there for right now. I don't want to bias anything here, and we're still waiting on actually getting the official report back, which is due, mid-September, September 15th.
Alderman Laws.
I want to reiterate, I think you and I have the same vision when it comes to the Performing Arts Center, and I'm excited about that as well. The feedback that I'm getting from the community, though, isn't as positive as the feedback that you're getting. People are very concerned. They're not hearing much about it. They don't know about the fundraising. So if there's any way I can light a fire under you, get us some information that I can pass on to the constituents, I would really appreciate that.
Well, you will get a report on the 18th.
All right.
But I would say this in general. The fundraiser we have knows the Nashville community very well. I did the soup kitchen
And the one,
fund drive as well as others,
YMCA.
as well as the YMCA. And the general approach taken by these professionals is that it is much more important to secure large gifts at the beginning as opposed to go out and, as much as we would like to have 100 people give $10, that the way to manage a successful campaign is to secure large givers at the beginning and then move out from there. So I think by taking a methodical, professional, proven approach, even though it takes more time, at least in the beginning, the interviews are with people who potentially can people and organizations who can potentially give, you know, significant, more than, say, you or I would probably be capable of. They can most successfully reach the goal. And I think part of the goal, of course, in addition to private sources who would contribute their own money, is the new market tax credit. We do have a consultant there. That, not a sure thing, but it looks very favorable. And we have a separate consultant. This person also has some knowledge of that. And we're pursuing that at the same time. And we just don't want to tell you the result before the fundraiser is here and can kind of, you know, go through the details and more, you know, with more knowledge than, you know, what we have. We don't want to upstage her really and let her provide you directly the results of her work. But we think at that time there'll be some recommendations as to how to achieve some major gifts and how to most maximize our chances on the Performing Arts Center and how to ultimately raise the amount of money we're looking for. I understand the idea that some people, you know, anybody who wanted to give money right now can just send it to the National Arts Commission, and they're holding, you know, they will hold small contributions at the present time. But the proven approach towards community fundraising over and over and over and over again is you secure large gifts at the beginning. Hence, and those don't come like, you know, hey, could you give us, you know, oh yeah, sure, I'll write a check. I mean, those don't come quickly or easily. I know that, anyway, yes, Alderman Laws.
It makes perfect sense to me. And again, I support what's going on. The people that I'm hearing from aren't the people who are looking to make donations, though. They're the people who believe this is a self-fulfilling prophecy of, you know, electing a new board of aldermen, spending $15 million of taxpayer money, and then nothing coming out of it. And so, that's generally where my concern is. I understand September 18th. It seems like Christmas to me. I'm excited about it.
All right.
I'll be
Well,
patient.
Christmas in September, we will have it.
I'll take it.
Alderwoman Karen.
Yes, thank you. I have to agree with Alderman Laws. I sat on the board when we brought that legislation in, and that part of it was that $4 million had to be in place before we would put any money down from that bond to that facility. And believe me, I've been part of, you know, performing arts centers for 30-some odd years. And so that's their concern, because the clock is ticking. And granted, you don't want to give us all that information until September 18th, but that's the question that keeps coming up is, are we going to pursue this even though we don't have that money? Because if you don't have that first $4 million, are you ever going to have that money that's going to sustain it? Or are we going to end up like we did before and have an issue that the city has to carry the burden forever? And I don't think that's what, you know, the city should be doing. They need to work in partnership. So, you know, I understand if you're bringing consultants in, and that's a good thing if they're raising that money, but that's the question that I keep hearing. Where is that $4 million before you approve that final bond issue? So I think it's important for you to understand that, and for the public to know that people who sit on the horseshoe are concerned as well. Thank you.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will echo both what Alderman Karen and Alderman Law said. I've been getting similar sort of what's going on type of questions. I would like to rescind my motion to approve and just table it until the 19th, which was the day after we'll get all that information from you.
All right, there's a motion to table. Any discussion on that? Alderwoman Klee.
I have a question. If we table this and we don't go forward with doing that, how far does that put us behind?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, if you table this a month to 2 months, potentially. I mean, so the whole point of this was to try to keep the consultant retained so we could easily transition into the execution phase of the fundraising effort. Right now, we're just in the feasibility study, which is the report and the strategy and the recommendations that will be coming. And then it will be the execution phase, and ironically enough, if you delay this, then you will actually be a self-fulfilling prophecy because it will just be that much longer before we actually then start to raise the money.
Alderman Laws.
I respectfully, I appreciate Alderwoman Kelly's proposition, but as Alderwoman Karen pointed out, the clock is ticking. And at this point, I feel like if we, in the interest of time, we really need to approve this to get this ball rolling, because I'm more concerned about, dragging this out any longer. And let's be honest, if this doesn't work out, we're all going to be run out of town anyways. So I mean, let's get this moving. Thank you.
Alderwoman Karen.
Thank you. I understand Alderman Kelly's concern, and I agree. This is part of, it's almost like the second half of her job. So if you stop it for another month or so, it really doesn't help the situation. So I agree with Alderman Laws. We just need to push it forward. But knowing that we're going to have a report in September, and if we're not seeing anything that we really think they're doing, then, there's always other avenues. But I think you don't want to stop this. You're like driving the car to 500 miles and you stop at 250 and say, let's wait a month or two. So I would ask you to approve this.
All right, well, the motion is Alderwoman Kelly.
Oh, I was pointing at.
Alderwoman Clee.
That's okay. Thank you. I agree. I think we need to approve and not go with the tabling.
All right, well, the motion on the floor is to table. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. All those opposed say nay.
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 Motion fails. Is there a motion to approve? Alderman Laws?
So moved.
Excuse me, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the contract is approved. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding 14 Court Street building renovations. Replace exterior wall of glass and door system with a value of $18,890. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Berkeley Building Company in the amount of $18,890. Funds are available in Department 183, Economic Development Building Trust Fund.
Now, maybe I should take a moment to speak about the origin of this whole thing. Alderman Gidge, who's very active in the arts community, has a lot of knowledge regarding particularly about the studios that exist in Lowell for artists, in the Western Avenue studio specifically, which is actually a very large mill building. And Mr. Cummings and I, with Alderman Gidge, some months ago visited the Western Avenue studios, which is quite, and anybody who hasn't gone there should check it out. It's a quite impressive facility, an entire mill building with maybe 300 artist studios, all of which are maybe 250 square feet. I mean, these are small places that they rent for, $250, $300, $350 a month. So Alderman Gidge began to make the point that there is space in the Court Street building off the lower back courtyard, the grassy area, kind of near where the Symphony has its studios, that there's space there that could be used and activated into artist studios, small spaces, not walls all the way to the, walls at about the 8 foot, about 8 feet tall? Some lighting, and and this is particularly for the stain, the rusted and discolored glass and doors and the like, which should be replaced anyway. So this is kind of a separate, at the same time, but really something that should happen anyhow. So he suggested, look, we could turn that area into 8 to 10 studios. So over time, we worked with Jay Honeywell, the city building manager, and others to kind of scope this out. Alderman Gidge has spent a lot of time over there, and developed a design for 9 studios with a design that seems like it would, work, and with the belief that there are at least 9, the picker artists, that building is full, with the belief that we can find 9 people who are willing to pay a modest amount of money to get a studio, with the knowledge that bringing artists into the downtown is usually a great long-term, even though only 9 in this case, too bad it's not 90, but is a long-term economic stimulator, because the artists attract other people and help with downtowns in general. So based upon the Ken Gidge idea, we ultimately developed a set of bid documents, put this out to bid, and received kind of these 2 independent projects, but this bid for the replacement of the glass and the frames, the reduction from 3 to 1 door, so a consolidated door, and also the following item, which is for the construction of the studio space and additional lighting and everything that's needed to kind of activate it. Now, if we were to rent these 9 studios for $250 a month, we bring in $2,250 a month. We have a payback, so which is, $26,000 a year or whatever. So we have a payback of, less than 3 years. And if we can get these studios activated, it will provide a lot of life. We're also upstairs from this putting in the nano brewery, which has been approved recently, and so this and this could lead to studios in the second floor as well. It seems like this is a good project to undertake with a reasonable payback, and source of funds would be the city building fund. These are reserved funds, and we have about $500,000 in the fund. This would, and the escrows propose adding 100 or something. But this would be expended out of those funds. So that's basically the proposal. Tim Cummings can fill in any of the gaps.
Mr. Mayor, I think you did a wonderful job with the synopsis. That's
But,
everything I would say.
obviously we're able to answer questions if you have them. Alderwoman Karen.
Thank you. This is what this was supposed to be about, Court Street, back in the 70s, 80s. So to think that we're getting there, even though it's taken a long time, I'm all for it. It's great space, and if it brings people in and you add to your community of artists, I think this is a win-win for all of us. So kudos for Alderman Gidge for really pushing this and knowing his art community, that they would take part of this. But this is great, Mayor and Mr. Cummings.
Alderman Laws.
Also, kudos to Alderman Gage, and it's a great idea. I love bringing in artists, but there's just an idea that I wanted to float. I believe we spoke about it before, the top room, when you walk in from the library side, to the right, empty, it's like an old conference room. We discussed turning that into a rentable area for bands to rehearse, because there's no rehearsal spaces for musicians in Nashua. And I've heard a few people mention that they have to drive to Lowell or Boston, in the same vein as artists who have to drive to Lowell or Boston to rent art space. Is there any way that we can piggyback that onto this or explore that opportunity?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I can't say that we can do it through this contract, but we can definitely get a scope and come back before you with a proposal if that's the will of this body. I think it fits very much with the mission of that building and very much would contribute to an artistic atmosphere. It's something we can definitely get a quote
Do
for.
you think it would involve improvements, or can they just go in the way it is, or what, I mean, would it require electrical upgrades or any kind of acoustic stuff?
I'm assuming it's got 220, right, running into it? And I'm not an audio engineer, but soundproofing is relatively inexpensive. The only concern that just thinking about it right now, is that if it's too loud, it might disturb the artists who are downstairs. But the walls are made out of concrete, right? Or at least many of them are. So unless they're a really terrible band, I can't imagine that being that much of an issue.
It is at the kind of the opposite ends of the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe we can pursue that, yes.
Absolutely, yep.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question. In what you've gone through and you explained it nicely, you said repurposing the windows glass and cutting the amount of access to the building, and then that's when my antenna went up on my former occupation. So before we start any of this, has this all been sanctioned and everything from code enforcement to the fire marshals? And just to make sure that we're, all hurdles are open, and because I really support this. I compliment Alderman Gidge and getting this forward. The arts community is a total asset to the city, but I just want to make sure that all letters of the law, we are the city, all letters of the law are being followed.
I think the answer is yes.
Yes. Yes.
This has been checked out with code and fire marshal and everybody.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Forgive me if I missed it, but this is all vacant space. It's not going to affect existing tenants in the building? Okay, thank you.
So if we can have the artists and the brew pub at one end, and then the musicians at the other, and then we just get the middle filled in, it'll be really good. Anyway. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding 14 Court Street building renovations. Fit up of vacant basement space with a value of $61,348. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Berkeley Building Company in the amount of $61,348. Source of funding is Apartment 183, Economic Development Building Trust Fund.
Discussion? This is obviously the project itself. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding Amherst Street and Broad Street sidewalk repairs, change order number 2 with a value of $40,000. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and approve change order number 2 to the contract with Leighton A. White in the amount of $40,000. Funds are available in Department 160, Administration, Engineering, Bond Funds.
Now, I believe our engineer is here to tell us about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Um,
My name is Mandeep Gill. I work with Steve Dukran in Engineering Department.
And you can give us more details, but in essence, this has to do with the repurposed Broad Street Parkway money, which is being used to pave the major arteries, Kinsley, Amherst, Somerset Parkway, and Broad. And because this is federal money, there are some additional requirements, ADA requirements regarding sidewalk tip downs and sidewalk access. This is designed to meet those federal requirements. We've awarded the contract, both authorized here and at the board, with Newport Construction for the paving itself and the overall contract, but this is for the tip downs and other requirements regarding some sidewalks out on, what is it, Amherst Street and Somerset?
Yes, Amherst Street, Somerset, and Broad Street.
Because you need to have, again, these tip downs and the textured plates, I don't know the
Detectable
terms,
warning
as you come into as you leave the sidewalk and go onto the street. And so this would help us meet those federal requirements. Now, is there anything else that you think that I misstated or that should be added?
No, I think you did great in explaining it. Beside additional ramps, the contractor is requesting increased flagger rate, additional.
But isn't that the next contract?
No, this one. It's included in this one.
Okay.
And then a few traffic loops while they are upgrading the tip downs. Sometimes traffic loops are damaged, so they have to be repaired. So it's mainly these line items.
Okay. Alderwoman Clee.
Yes, thank you. I'm definitely all for putting in appropriate sidewalks with the appropriate tip downs and so on. Do we have to do any regrading of streets to make sure that there's no? Because I know, the reason I'm saying this is I know I've been a nag to your department for sidewalks and so on Lock Street. And one of the things about trying to do the tip downs is sometimes you have to regrade the street so that you don't literally, if you're on wheels, go sliding into the road.
Yes, we are not regrading the street. It's mainly.
I mean the sidewalk.
Yes,
Sorry. Yeah.
Sidewalk. The street will stay at the same level. We are milling and overlaying.
Okay.
So we are adjusting these ramps to existing street. So we are not raising or lowering it.
Okay.
Alderman Laws.
I can't imagine you're going to find much opposition to this, but just for the sake of it, as I understand it, if we don't have the ADA compliance, we lose our eligibility for the DOT funds, correct?
Yeah, we potentially would lose
So
$4
this-
million.
Yeah, so we're spending $40,000 to save $4 million in this particular case. I just wanted to put that on record. I'm not a genius. That sounds good, though.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding 2018 paving program change order number 2 with a value of $359,738. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and approve change order number 2 with the contract with Newport Construction in the amount of $359,738. Source of funding is Department 160, Administration Engineering, Bond Funds.
Yes.
This change order, we are trying to request few line items, for example, flaggers, because we are paving so many residential, collector, and arterial streets. And Newport, on any given day, they have 3 to 5 crews in Nashua. So for each crew, they need at least 2 to 4 flaggers. So in total, sometimes they need 16 flaggers a day. So we are requesting $100,000 for additional flaggers. Then the next item under this change order is most of the streets that we were paving this year, we thought we'll just do mill and overlay, which is much cheaper alternate compared to reclaim. But last year's winter was so bad that 6 of the streets we are reclaiming. That's why we are requesting additional funds for reclaiming these streets.
Reclaiming means?
We actually go in and churn top 10 inches instead of removing just 2 inches of asphalt. So we try to build a brand new street.
Now, there's several other items, so why don't we wait for the questions?
Yes, and then liquid asphalt adjustment prices have gone up, When we prepared this contract, it was February, March, and right now we are in September. The base price has gone up. That's why we are requesting additional funds. And then on Sharon Avenue, we are trying to add a right turning lane. So we need additional funds for adding that turning lane.
And on that last item, this is something, I know Alderwoman Schmidt is not here, but the residents of the Broad Street area, Ward 1, would really like to have a right turning lane on Sharon as you go south as you're heading south and you hit Pine Hill Road, so that you can turn right if someone ahead of you in busy time is trying to turn left. So for a price of $24,000, we can add a right turning lane and make a bunch of people's lives easier. So that's the point of this. Alderman Laws.
The flagger thing is the only thing that's, because this is the second time we've increased the budget for the flaggers in the last, I believe, month and a half. It reminds me of, so like the recycling. We worked out a contract where there's a maximum amount that we were going to pay. And we're probably going to stay under that. But if recycling turns into, $1,000 a pound for us, we don't have to pay $1,000 a pound. Is there any way you can work this out so we don't have to keep going back and giving them money for?
Yes, we only pay for the invoices that are submitted to us. So it's not like a blank check to the contractor. So if on a street there are 2 flaggers used, we only pay for 2 flaggers. And the reason we are requesting more and more flagger is because we are having tough time getting police details on these streets. So we have to just use flaggers, and we still have funds in uniformed officers line item. But we are using more flaggers than expected.
I've had a few people ask me where they would apply for this job since we've been, I'm not even kidding. So is there any way you can, because it seems like a pretty good gig.
I think we pay $28.50 per hour for flagger to the company, and then we don't know what the company pays to their flaggers.
Okay.
So I'm sure they have to incorporate workman compensations, insurance, other items, but I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on that.
Okay, thank you.
Although, if you've got applications, we can probably get them to the right place.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right? Maybe you and I should take a day and go out and have a good time.
I would
Yes.
gladly.
Alderwoman Clee.
Hi. In reference to the flaggers and police detail and so on, when I drove by a few of the sites, I had seen that it was Milford Police and not Nashua Police. And one of the first things I did was to contact Chief Lavoie and say, why do we have Milford Police doing this? And he said, we don't have enough bodies. And that's why they were using Milford Police. And I've been hearing that Milford Police are kind of getting exhausted also. So I can understand the need for flaggers over police details.
Yes, right now in Nashua, there are a lot of construction work going on. Utilities are also
Yes.
upgrading their infrastructure. So it's the same pool we are fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, I just want to comment to the representative part of you. As you remember, what happens up in the State House most certainly affects us here in the city.
Yes.
And the issues with the pension system, to which you can do the blood money of standing out there for long periods of time doing that type of police work, but no compensation into the pension system. So therefore, they choose not to do it. And this is one of the knee-jerk reactions to how foolish decisions that were made in Concord, my personal opinion.
And I completely understand those.
Alderwoman Harriet Gathright.
Question, the streets that you were reclaiming, would that happen to be Main Street? No?
Main Street kept getting attention on a regular interval, whereas these streets which we are reclaiming, they have not been paved in 15 years or 20 years.
Okay, so they're the ones that are on the list currently.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And I think that's all for you, for engineering. Thank you very much. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding contract for design build award Fuel Island upgrade with a value of $259,488. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to EnviroTrack Environmental Services in the amount of $259,488. Funds are available in Department 161 Streets, General Operating and Escrow Funds.
This is, you've met before, I think, but John Ibarra, the superintendent of streets, who was here to fill us in regarding this and a couple of the subsequent items. So what's the deal with this?
Well,
I know, but I'm asking you. I do know, but
so we went out to bid to replace our ailing infrastructure over there. That's our hub for fueling the entire Division of Public Works, as well as fire, PD, AMR, ambulance, school department. The state has some vehicles that come in there. But anyway, the infrastructure below grade is deteriorated, it's old, it's failing. So they need to replace the fuel supply lines, the pans that are below the pumps, the pans by the tanks, and the pumps themselves, the dispensers. And if you were to look at the surface, all you'd see is just the failing concrete around the island. We did secure the funding through capital improvements, and last season, in anticipation of this, we escrowed $50,000 towards the project also. We're also gonna seize the opportunity and put a canopy over there. So the guys that are fueling during storms, and gals, will be out of the weather a little bit.
appreciate it. Alderwoman Clee.
Hi, I happened to just be there today, and I actually saw the pumps and so on. And my first comment was, it's been a long time since I've seen the wheel pumps instead of the digital, the little numbers turning in that respect. I also talked to Director Photo about that you have failings during the colder months and the winter months for this, and
Correct.
we can't have that. We can't have that for ambulance, et cetera. So,
They've been a maintenance issue.
thank you.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick question. It's been several years since I fueled up there, but had the security system, that's got to remain intact, or has that been replaced? It's still viable
Yes,
to be
we're gonna
incorporated with the
maintain that
upgrades to
system.
the island?
Yep.
Alderwoman Karen.
You adding any pumps?
No, we're gonna
You're
maintain the
just-
same number.
Same two? Okay, because you
4.
figure that's 4. Oh,
Yep.
It's been a long time since I fueled up over there, but I think it's great because this is back in the 70s, late 70s when this was built, so,
It looks like
yeah.
It's due.
It's a wonder we didn't Great.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding Johnston VT 651 vacuum air sweeper with a value of $274,100. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Sanitary Equipment Company, Inc. in the amount of $274,100. Source of funding is Department 161 Street Surf.
Discussion? Questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly. Now, that's all for Mr. Ibarra. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna stick around and answer any questions for wastewater.
Okay. Well, you can stay there if you
Just
want.
sit.
I mean, you don't have to. We've got Mr. LaFleur for the recycling.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding contract for recycling area restoration, new roof with a value of $54,522. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Clearspan Fabric Structures International in the amount of $54,522. Funds are available in Department 168 Solid Waste.
You know, Mr. LaFleur, Jeff LaFleur, head of the landfill. You want to tell them what this is about, or you?
Sure. This is a cover that's going to go over our recycling area that'll keep the weather off of our recycling, try to reduce any snow and water that's going to get on it and cause extra weight. As we all know, the recycling markets are terrible, and we're paying a lot per ton.
And since we last discussed this, prices have gone up. Where are we now
We're at $89.64 a ton.
to dispose of recycling? We were at 72, then 82,
Yeah,
and then,
yeah, it's just gradually gone up. Actually, the last one just went down like 60 cents a ton, but
anyway, discussion, questions on this motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding contract for landfill gas management services with a value of $12,000. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and contingent upon Board of Aldermen approval, award the contract to Sanborn Head and Associates, Inc. in the amount of $12,000. Source of funding is Department 168, Solid Waste.
Discussion, questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding purchase of one American 511 snow plow and controls with a value of $20,355. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from Howard P. Fairfield in the amount of $20,355. Funds are available in Department 169 Wastewater Wharf.
I guess Mr. LaFleur left, but
He wasn't able to be here tonight, so he got a hold of me this morning, asked me if I'd speak on his behalf. So I'll do my best to answer his questions.
okay. Any questions, comments about this Alderman Laws?
So, as I understand it, this is just to have a snowplow on hand at the wastewater facility?
No.
No.
So what this truck is set up to do is actually clean catch basins. There's a clamshell bucket on a boom that they can go down and grab the muck and the brick and whatever is in the bottom of the basins. They've been doing it with the Vector trucks. That's time consuming. It takes the Vector trucks off of doing sewer blockages and jetting lines. So this will be one more tool in their arsenal. They had an old number 4, which this is designed to replace. That's been out of service for 7 years, rough figures. It'll definitely be an asset to the city to be able to get out there and clean basins with that. And it's more mechanical as well, where the Vector's sucking up the grime through the fan, and it wears out the metal a lot quicker.
Now, I think you're one item ahead of us.
You're talking on the plow controls?
I think you are talking about the catch basin cleaner, right?
Well, that's all part of the same unit. This
But
is
what
one.
about the,
It's 3 different motions. I'm not sure why it's broken down exactly this way, but this will make one complete truck.
oh, I see.
So you have the plow and the controls, then you have the,
All right, so that's all, it's all
Cab and
part of one
chassis, yeah.
vehicle. Yeah, yeah, okay. So this will plow as well.
yes,
As
it will,
do-
but more or less pump stations. It's gonna stay over there in wastewater. It's not gonna be joining my fleet doing streets.
Well, if I may.
Alderman Laws.
So my next question was going to be, who currently is removing snow from wastewater? Is this going to free up one of your trucks that was previously
No,
used?
they have their guys
have their
do their
own?
wastewater stuff
Okay.
while we're out doing the streets.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Alderwoman Clee.
Hi. I don't know if you can answer this. I recently had to, within a neighborhood, come and ask them to come and clean some of the catch basins. One of the issues that they had because of the vac, because it kind of sucks up everything even down, they spray water in it as they're sucking up and so on. So
Correct.
it's getting excessive water. Their trucks kept filling up because there was so much stuff in it. With this, because it goes down as a claw, be less likely to fill up the trucks and then have to keep coming back more and more. Do you know?
They won't have to water it up,
Okay.
so downtime is minimal. They will have to go and dump at the landfill,
Right.
but it's basically a dump truck.
Right.
So that clamshell will just scoop and drop in a body, and when they're full, they'll go offload and then go back to work.
Can I follow up?
Yes.
Does that mean that because they're not spraying and watering, that there's less that they're actually taking out of the ground and not? In other words, I'm thinking it's more efficient than using the vac.
It's correct. In a Vector, you would get a cleaner basin,
Mm-hmm.
but catch basins are designed with a sump.
Right.
So it's designed to catch the silt and keep it below the invert of the pipe or the lip where the water runs out. So they're supposed to be cleaned every 3 years in a rotation, and in that time, the sump or the silt will accumulate. Cleaning with a manual and getting that silt out will minimize the grit that ends up down at the plant also, so we'll benefit there.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding the purchase of one 950T13 catch basin cleaner with a value of $126,923. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from Howard P. Fairfield in the amount of $126,923. Source of funding is available in Department 169 wastewater worth.
All right, any discussion, questions on this? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Ibarra.
All right,
That's
thank
it for you. Unfinished business.
Oh, we missed the last one.
Oh, we missed the last one, sorry. I was thinking.
One more.
Sorry.
Now you need a truck.
Sit back down.
You need something to put this
I was
all on.
almost out of here.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding purchase of one 2019 HV 507 six-wheel cab and chassis truck with a value of $85,950. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from Howard P. Fairfield in the amount of $85,950. Funds are available in Department 169 wastewater worth.
All right, we've got this motion. Any discussion? Basically a snowplow.
That is the truck itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Unfinished business, none. New business resolutions, R18-069, authorizing the City of Nashua to enter into a contract with BA for transit services. Ms. Sarah Marchant has been patiently waiting for some period of time and is here to discuss this, I'm sure. Is there, first, just so we get it, the formalities out of the way, is there a motion with respect to this resolution? Alderwoman Kelly?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I move to recommend final passage.
All right, so maybe you can fill us in.
So before you tonight is a contract with BAE Systems that's actually similar to our UPass program. We are adding a new route, a downtown connector route, which will serve downtown better, Canal Street, and the new Crown Street parking lot that is coming online shortly. It has new key stops for the French Hill and Crown Hill neighborhood. We have limited service getting to the eastern side of the city close to Hudson due to traffic issues, lack of lights, safe areas for the bus to turn around, one-way streets make it difficult. So this is a big improvement for those neighborhoods and to get people to downtown to take to be able to switch buses from the transit center here for work. We've had requests for this in our surveys over the years. It is also will stop directly in front of the post office and the library, which don't have direct stops right now. So it's a trial to see if it works, and we have a contract with BAE as they're interested. They have a major parking crunch. They have so many people they're bringing online, and this will go right by their building. It will run on the half hour from 8 a.m. to 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. during the week. And so they are offering a contract and will put up some shelter and to pay for some shelters as part of this.
And would contribute $260,000, right?
$260,000 in exchange. Every BAE employee with their special BAE employee pass will be able to ride any route in the city of Nashua for free at any time as with their route. And so that's how the UPass program works. With their college pass. With Riviere or NCC, you can get on any route at any time. It is not restricted to this route specifically, but this route appeals to them. But all employees will be able to ride any route.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. And just in addition to what Ms. Marchant said, And infrastructure, we had looking at the physical structure itself and everything, which did pass the infrastructure committee for your perusal when it comes before the full board. So this is a companion thing that's going on. It's, we were excited about it. It's greatly got enhanced, as she said, to the increase the routes and everything. So it's a great asset. So it did pass our committee.
Alderwoman Clee.
I can say for the BAE and the parking and the effect it has on Ward 3, Canal Street and Lock Street and so on. So the more bus we can use, the more alternate transportation, I'm all for it.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes and the resolution is recommended for final
Thank you very
passage.
much.
Thank you very much. New business ordinances, none. Record of expenditures, is there a motion on the record of expenditures?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move that the Finance Committee has complied with the city charter and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures for the period August 10th to August, it's blank on my thing. Do you have it right there? August 31st?
August 31st.
August 10th through August 31st.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the record of expenditures is approved. General discussion, do anybody have any general discussion items? Public comments? I don't see any members of the public who wish to come forward. Remarks by aldermen. Any alderman wish to make remarks? Alderwoman Karen.
Thank you. They paved Main Street today, Mayor.
Pardon?
They paved Main Street today.
Good.
Yay. Although there was a little bit of confusion on detours from Main Street to Fifield, and they were coming down some of the side streets and backing up. So we got that squared away early this morning, but thank you. It's great. It's a long
Good.
time coming.
Good. Anyone else? If not, we do have a scheduled non-public session with Risk Manager Deshays. Does someone have a motion to Alderwoman? Is it Alderwoman Karen who has that?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we go into non-public.
Well.
Oh, do you want a motion to adjourn?
No. Maybe there's a specifically worded motion that's required.
Oh, okay.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Finance Committee go into non-public session by roll call pursuant to RSA 91-A3-2 to consider pending litigation filed against the city.
So we need to do a roll call. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yay.
Alderman Kelly is a yay. Alderman Laws.
Yay.
Alderman Clee.
Yay.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Yay.
We have 7 yays.
All right, so we are in non-public session, and now we will shut off the cameras, right? I don't know if they know to do that. Alderman O'Brien is going to go speak to the camera person. Why doesn't Ms. Deshay come up to one of the chairs? How about right here? Good. Next to Alderwoman Karen.